Ever wonder where Jesus was actually born? We all know the classic nativity scene, a cozy wooden stable with Mary, Joseph, Jesus in a manger, surrounded by donkeys and sheep. It's a beautiful image, one we see every Christmas. But what if I told you that the Bible doesn't actually mention a wooden stable? What if the real birthplace of Jesus was something completely different, and maybe even more humble? Today, we're going on a historical and biblical detective journey to uncover the truth behind Jesus' birth. We'll dig into the original texts, explore ancient traditions, and look at archaeological evidence to piece together a more accurate picture of that first Christmas night. Get ready, because what we find might just change the way you see the nativity story forever. Let's start with the Bible itself. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, gives us the most detailed account. It says that when Mary and Joseph arrived in Bethlehem, there was no guest room available for them. So Mary gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger. Notice what's missing: the word stable. The original Greek word used in Luke's Gospel is kataluma. Now, this word is often translated as inn, which naturally leads us to imagine a sort of ancient hotel that was fully booked. But kataluma can also be translated as guest room or upper room. In fact, in other parts of the New Testament, like the story of the Last Supper, the same word is used to describe the upper room in a private house. So, why is this important? Because it suggests that Mary and Joseph weren't turned away from a commercial inn. It's more likely they were staying with relatives, which was a very common practice. Bethlehem was Joseph's ancestral hometown, so it makes perfect sense he would seek shelter with his family. The problem wasn't that a grumpy innkeeper said no room. The problem was that the family's house was already packed with other relatives who had also come for the census. The kataluma, or the main guest room, was full. This is where the manger comes in. The text is very clear that Jesus was placed in a manger, which is a feeding trough for animals. So, if they weren't in a separate stable, where were the animals? In ancient Palestinian homes, especially in hilly regions like Bethlehem, it was very common for a family to live in a house that was partly a cave, or had a lower level dug into the hillside where they kept their animals at night. This kept the animals safe from thieves and bad weather, and their body heat would rise and help warm the family living in the upper level. So, the picture that emerges is not a separate, freestanding wooden barn, it's a bustling family home. Mary and Joseph, unable to find space in the crowded main living area upstairs, would have been given privacy in the lower level of the house, the part where the animals were kept. It was a space carved out of the limestone rock, a cave-like room, and right there, among the family's animals, was a stone or clay manger. This was the humble, private space where the Son of God was born. This cave theory isn't new. In fact, it's one of the oldest Christian traditions we have. As early as the 2nd century, around the year 155 AD, a Christian writer named Justin Martyr wrote that Jesus was born in a cave near the village of Bethlehem. He was born in Palestine and was familiar with the area, so his testimony is incredibly valuable. Another early church father, Origen, also wrote in the 3rd century that the cave in Bethlehem where Jesus was born was a well-known sight, even to people who weren't Christians. The tradition was so strong that when the Roman Emperor Hadrian wanted to suppress Christianity in the 2nd century, he deliberately built a pagan shrine to the god Adonis over the very cave believed to be Jesus' birthplace. His plan backfired. By marking the spot, he inadvertently preserved its location for future generations. Then, in the 4th century, when Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, his mother, Helena, traveled to the Holy Land to identify important biblical sites. Guided by local tradition, she identified this very cave. Constantine then ordered the construction of a magnificent church over it, the Church of the Nativity. This church, which still stands today, is one of the oldest continuously operating churches in the world. And if you visit Bethlehem today, you can go down into a grotto beneath the main altar. This grotto is the very cave that ancient tradition has honored for nearly 2,000 years as the birthplace of Jesus. The floor is marble, the walls are covered in tapestries, and silver lamps hang from the ceiling. But beneath all the decoration, you can still see the natural rock of the cave walls. A 14-pointed silver star on the floor marks the spot where tradition says Jesus was born. So why do we have this image of a wooden stable? The idea likely became popular in Western Europe centuries later. In places like Germany or England, farmers kept their animals in wooden barns, separate from the house. So, when people read the story, they naturally imagine the scene in a setting they were familiar with. Artists in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance painted the nativity in these wooden stables, and over time, that image became the standard. Saint Francis of Assisi created the first live nativity scene in the 13th century, and he used a stable, which further solidified the image in popular culture. But understanding the original context, the birth in a humble cave-like space, adds so much depth to the story. It wasn't an impersonal, cold stable. It was the lower level of a family home, filled with relatives. It was a place of humility, for sure, but also a place of family and community. Jesus was born not on the margins of society in some forgotten barn, but right in the heart of a family home, just in its lowliest part. This picture of a cave birth emphasizes the humility of the moment even more profoundly. Jesus wasn't just born in poverty. He was born in the most basic, earthy part of a human dwelling, a space shared with animals, carved out of the very rock of the earth. It's a powerful symbol of God entering our world in the most humble way imaginable. He came down to the very foundation of human life. So, this Christmas, when you see a nativity scene, maybe you'll see it a little differently. The wooden stable is a beautiful symbol that has connected people to the story for centuries, and there's nothing wrong with it. But knowing the historical likelihood of the cave adds a new layer of meaning. It reminds us that the story is not a fairy tale. It's rooted in real history, in the real customs of a real place. The Son of God was born in a simple, rocky shelter, in the midst of family, in the humblest of circumstances. And that truth makes the story even more incredible. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the birth of Jesus. It's amazing how much more we can appreciate these stories when we explore their historical context. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into history and faith. What other biblical stories would you like to see us investigate? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.